Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a monthly TBR video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I want to read in October. Obviously these are just kind of like a vague idea of what I want to read, and at the minute I'm in a really big fantasy mood. I am hoping to kind of mix in a couple of horror books towards the end of the month because obviously it is spooky season. But other than that, I have a couple of books that I really am raring to read right now, and none of them are horror, but maybe I'll add some in eventually. So without further ado, here are the books that I'm planning to read in October. So the first one that I'm going to mention, I'm not going to spend too much time on because this was one that was mentioned in my last TBR, but that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. So this, as far as I'm aware, is a YA fantasy that follows a young girl named Iris who has a brother who goes off to war and then becomes missing on the front line. Her mother is suffering from addiction, and so she starts working at this gazette, and she has this little enemy there named Roman Kit, and both are battling it out to win a columnist promotion. While she is there, Iris decides to start writing her brother letters where she puts them into a wardrobe and they disappear into the hands of Roman Kit. But as far as I know, neither one knows who has written these letters, but they start writing to each other back and forth, and it's a massive enemies to lover thing. I've heard nothing but really good things about this book. I hate to say it, but I'm going in with very, very high hopes. I didn't do that for Fourth Wing, and I loved Fourth Wing, and so I'm terrified that if I go in with massive high hopes for this, I won't enjoy it as much. But I'm crossing my fingers because I'm sensing some good vibes from this one. Now, because it is spooky season, what would spooky season be without witches? I would love to read The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling this month. So this is actually a book that I've mentioned to my friend a couple of times because whilst we were away, I got her into romance. And she hates me for this because now she loves smutty little romances and she hates it. She's like, what have I become? But I actually think that that is progress. That is character development, and honey, it was the best thing for you. But I kept telling her about this book because obviously this is supposed to be a really good witchy romance and she hasn't yet read it, and I really want to read it this month because it's been on my list to read for so long, and I feel like this season is the best time to do it. So Goodreads says, 9 years ago, Vivian Jones nursed her broken heart like any young witch would. Vodka, weepy music, bubble baths, and a curse on her horrible boyfriend. I do believe the boyfriend comes back, and I've quickly scanned the blurb, but honestly I don't really need to know anything else other than that. It's a witchy romance, it is spooky season, and I've heard that this is really good. Again, I don't want to say I'm going in with high hopes, but I kind of have high hopes for this one. So then the third book that I'm hoping to read in October is Foxglove by Adeline Grace, and I have been leaving this one because this released in August, but I don't feel like August fits the vibe of these books, and I definitely didn't want to read it on holiday because again I was in the sunshine, and now that the weather is getting a little bit chillier and the days have kind of been really stormy and awful here in the UK like they usually are, I feel like this is a good time to read this, and honestly I'm really in the mood for it. Now this is the sequel to Belladonna, which I think I read this year or I read it last year. I can't remember which, but I really loved the first book. Oh my god, I was obsessed. Now obviously I'm not going to tell you what this book is about because it all kind of spoil things that happened in the first book, but all you need to know is that this follows a young woman named Signa, and she is an orphan who has been passed off from family member to family member, where in the first book she is eventually given to, I can't remember their relation to her, but I think she's with her cousins. And in this manner there has been some weird goings on, and Signa can actually see death himself, and she usually takes these belladonna berries so that she can see him again, and essentially she can never die. That is where the plot is going here. Now there is kind of some romantic elements that happen in this book, and obviously you have that mystery kind of thriller element that goes along with it. I just really loved the atmosphere of the first book, and I'm super excited to get into this one as well. I feel like I'm going to be reading this and listening to some Florence and the Machine. It just gives me that vibe, and I'm so excited to get back into it, and I hope I love it as much as the first book. So the fourth book that I want to read in October is a YA, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I have been seeing this book everywhere. I've known about Holly Jackson for a while because she wrote a lot of really popular books back in the day, and this one has just blown up. Obviously I know that there's going to be an adaptation. I think the BBC are adapting this, which just blows my mind, although they have done really good shows in the past, I will admit. So this is a trilogy, I believe, and it essentially follows a girl named Pippa Fitz-Amobi, and she decides to do her final year project on this murder that kind of plagued her town for a very long time. And this guy named Sal Singh was believed to be the murderer. However, as she goes on with her final project for school, she realises that actually there are some secrets that this town is trying to keep buried. I'm so excited to read this. I've heard really, really good things, and I'm trying to keep my expectations very, very low, because the last time I read a YA book that had a lot of hype surrounding it, I didn't love it. Like, I thought it was okay, but I didn't think it was anything special. But I've heard this trilogy is really good, and I'm kind of stoked to read it. Like, I'm not expecting light-hearted, but I know with YA it's not as heavy as some of like the adult thrillers that I read, so I'm very excited for something a little bit more light-hearted than what my adult ones are, because those ones are pretty graphic. I am also really hoping to do a reading vlog on this one and read the whole trilogy, so if you enjoyed this one, please let me know. Obviously keep it spoiler free, but like, I'm really excited about this one. Now, the fifth and final book that I'm hoping to read in October, and this is a long shot because this is quite a big book, and honestly I don't read physical books that often anymore, but honestly when I see a massive physical book, I'm like, how am I going to finish that? But that is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, which is the second book in the Last Hours trilogy. Obviously I read the first book towards the beginning of the year and I really enjoyed it. I just haven't read on with it yet, and I think I said in my yearly TBR that I really wanted to finish this trilogy if I could, so I'm kind of hoping I can do that, but I just don't want to rush through it. I am trying to read this trilogy so that I have everything kind of like fresh in my mind, because although I have left a massive gap between this one and the first one, I do still remember a lot of the details. It's just the characters I'm going to have to remember. But to give you a brief overview, this essentially follows on from the Infernal Device trilogy. I believe that this takes place like 20 years after that trilogy ended. So it does have characters from the Infernal Devices in it. It is set again in that kind of like Victorian-esque era London, which I absolutely love in this series. I remember really enjoying the characters in the first book. Again, I really enjoyed the setting like I did in the Infernal Devices. So I'm really excited to get stuck in. I have to remember what is going on. I remember like one of the plot points, but honestly I'm gonna have to go on like a brief overview thing and try and have a look at some spoilers, because your girl might struggle. So those are the 5 books that I'm hoping to read in October. If you guys have any other books that you're hoping to read in October, please leave them in the comments below, and also maybe leave a comment with a recommendation for a really good horror book that I could read. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content from me. And until the next video, I will see you then, so bye guys.